The Billionaire's twins had made 10 professionals quit. Then a janitor with a mop walked in, and within minutes, the tantrum was gone. Donald Liu watched from a security feed, stunned. How was she doing what no expert could? He told his assistant one thing: find out who she is, before someone else does. Amber Robinson paused mid-mop just outside the frosted glass doors. Through the etched lines of the Lutech logo, she saw them. 2 little girls in matching red dresses, huddled in the corner like porcelain dolls abandoned on a shelf. Karen and Allison. The infamous Liu twins. They weren't screaming. Not anymore. Now they just sat, stone still, eyes vacant, backs pressed against the wall like they wanted to disappear. Amber knew that kind of silence. She'd seen it in her own son's face the week their world fell apart. She should have kept walking. She had 3 floors to finish before her shift ended, and a 10-year-old waiting for homework help back home. But something in the twins' stillness reached through her chest like a hand and tugged. The door creaked softly as she pushed it open. The girls flinched, barely, but Amber caught it. She didn't speak, didn't rush. She simply knelt and began picking up the scattered crayons on the floor, half melted, broken in pieces. You know, Amber murmured, her voice like velvet over glass. Colors don't mean much when they're broken. One of the twins, Allison, if she remembered right, lifted her chin. Then fix them, she said, eyes sharp under soft curls. Amber smiled faintly. I can't fix them. But I can show you how to make something new. She took 2 crayon fragments, blue and yellow, and slowly pressed them together into a single, swirling piece. The girls watched, transfixed. Across the building, Donald Liu stood in his corner office, phone in hand, watching the daycare's security feed. His brow furrowed. The janitor was calming them. In silence, Amber offered the new crayon to the girls, then sat cross-legged a few feet away. Not a threat, not a command, just presence. Within minutes, the tantrum had unraveled into something quiet, something possible. Amber rose gently. As she rolled her cart away, the twins whispered something barely audible. Miss Amber, will you come back tomorrow? Donald's voice echoed in the hallway outside. Find me that janitor's full name. For Donald Liu, CEO of Lutech and master of mergers, control was everything. But his twin daughters had become the one variable he couldn't solve. Nannies, specialists, even elite Swiss therapists, none had lasted. Until now. Until her. The next morning started with cereal on the walls and 1 twin under the table. Amber arrived early, quietly slipping off her gloves and apron at the door. The nanny had quit again. The girls, Karen and Allison, were curled into themselves at opposite ends of the breakfast nook, scowling like mirror images. One refused to brush her hair. The other had declared her shoes traitors and kicked them into the pantry. Amber didn't raise her voice. She didn't lecture. Instead, she crouched near the edge of the chaos and tapped her chest once, then exhaled slowly, audibly. A brave breath. Karen peeked up. Amber tapped again, then made her breath even slower. Allison watched. It took 5 rounds, but eventually 2 little chests began rising and falling in rhythm with hers. She held up 2 things, a comb and a book. Choose 2, she said gently. 1 for now, 1 for after. Karen reached for the book. Allison hesitated, then pointed to the comb with a huff. Amber grinned. Smart choice. See, shoes choose you after you brush your hair. It's the rule. You made that up, Karen muttered. Absolutely, Amber said. But the shoes don't know that. It earned her a half smile, and 1 hairbrushing later, the shoes reappeared under the table, retrieved by their owners with great ceremony. Downstairs, gossip swirled through the break room like steam from the coffee pot. Did you hear? The janitor's got them saying please and thank you. She's not trained for this. It won't last. She's not trained, someone else muttered. But those girls are different when she's around. Amber didn't hear any of it. By the time the others clocked in, she was back in the playroom, teaching the twins how to fold paper boats. When Allison's tore down the middle, she didn't cry. She just held it up. Amber nodded. Red rule or green rule? Green rule, Allison said. Try again, Karen whispered, already folding a new one for her sister. That night, Amber unlocked the door to her small apartment and kicked off her sneakers in the dark. The hum of a soldering iron buzzed from the kitchen. Marcus, she called. In here! Her son's voice rang out. He was at the table, hunched over a half-built robot made of soup cans and bent spoons. I added speech, kinda. A plastic larynx squeaked from the machine. Hello, I am trash. Amber laughed. Better than most politicians. The fridge calendar was a patchwork of color-coded scribbles. Night shifts in blue, tutoring jobs in red, Marcus's robotics club in green. In the corner, the same reminder circled every Friday. We build with what we have. She sat beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. I had a tough day, she murmured. Did you melt? He asked, smiling. Almost. We've got rules for that. She kissed the top of his head. That we do. The next day, Amber was summoned to the 33rd floor. Glass walls. Steel furniture. The skyline glittered through the full-length windows. Donald Liu stood behind his desk. Every inch of him crisp, commanding. I assume you know why you're here. No, sir. He tapped a tablet, showing the feed from the children's suite. The girls were gluing tissue paper flowers with full concentration. This thing you're doing. Keep it professional, Amber met his eyes. I clean floors. I also care about children. I can do both. A beat of silence stretched between them. Donald's jaw twitched. Fine, he said. Just don't make yourself indispensable. I don't like dependency. Amber's face didn't flinch. Neither do children. But they need consistency more than control. Later that week, she gave the girls a new activity, writing tiny letters on folded stars. They called it mail for Mommy. They didn't have to show the letters. They just had to fold them, decorate them with star stickers, and whisper, for heaven. Amber brought 2 envelopes from home and helped them seal their first ones inside. The girls beamed. That night, Donald found one on the floor beside the playroom couch. It was written in thick crayon. Dear Mommy, I brushed my hair. Miss Amber says my brave breath was very big today. I hope you saw. Love, Allison? He didn't move for a long time. Just sat on the edge of the couch with the letter in his hand, his fingers trembling around the crayon marks. Sir? The butler said from the hallway. Donald blinked once. Run a full background check on her, he said quietly. I want everything. Hours later, long after the girls had fallen asleep in Amber's lap, the security feed caught the still frame of a janitor cradling 2 children like they were her own. Donald watched, unmoving. His eyes flicked from the twins' peaceful faces to Amber's bowed head. His jaw tightened. Gratitude and something darker just beneath it. The report landed on Donald's desk before sunrise. Crisp and clinical in its wording. 5-year employment gap. No criminal record. Previous university affiliation noted but unremarkable, until his fixer made a second call. That's when the real story surfaced. Dr. Amber Lynn Robinson, once a respected child behavioral therapist, published, awarded, promising, until the scandal. Her ex-husband, a venture capitalist, had embezzled hundreds of thousands in charity funds through a foundation she helped him build. When the money vanished, so did he, left Amber holding the bag. The investigation cleared her, but not before her name was plastered across headlines, linked forever to fraud and betrayal. She didn't fight it in court, not publicly, not loudly. She walked away, license unrenewed, career erased, a newborn in her arms. Donald stared at the file long after he finished reading. The mop, the gloves, the night shifts, they hadn't been a fall. They were a choice, a shield, a way to survive quietly while raising a son no one ever asked about. He found her later that morning wiping down the inside of a supply cabinet with lavender oil. She didn't flinch when she saw him. Mr. Liu, she said, standing upright. He held up the file. Why are you a janitor? Amber didn't look at the folder. She looked straight at him, calm, steady, because some doors close before you can explain. Floors still need cleaning. Kids still need care. Donald said nothing. But his grip on the folder softened slightly. Behind them, a small gasp. They both turned. Karen and Allison stood in the hallway. Karen's lower lip trembled. Allison's eyes were wide with worry. You're in trouble? Karen whispered. Amber stepped forward. No, baby. Just grown-up talk, but the damage was done. That afternoon, the girls refused to nap, refused to eat, refused to speak. At playtime, they kicked over their own tower and then sobbed when it broke. Amber sat down cross-legged on the mat, held up both hands. Red rule? She asked gently. The twins shook their heads. Or green rule? A pause. Then a pair of shaky nods. Amber drew out 2 felt cards from her tote bag, one red, one green, and handed them over. Red means stop. Green means try again. The girls took them, pressed the green ones to their chests. Try again, they echoed. Donald watched all of it from the observation monitor, his arms crossed. The simplicity, the control, the choice. She wasn't just guessing, she had systems. And the girls responded. Later that day, Amber was showing a new custodial hire how to double-knot trash bags. Pull tight, then wrap once more. Keeps the weight from busting the liner, she said. The young woman raised an eyebrow. Didn't think that mattered much. Amber smiled. It does when you're the one cleaning it up at midnight. Small things matter. Donald approached just as she finished. The new hire gave a polite nod and scurried off. He cleared his throat. If I wanted to bring you in, unofficially, consult, off the books. Would you be willing? Amber didn't blink. Only if the cafeteria staff get breaks longer than 12 minutes, the night crew gets hazard pay. And the twins keep their routines, no exceptions. Donald stared at her. You drive a hard bargain. Children thrive on predictability. So do underpaid employees. He nodded once. Done. As she turned to leave, he added awkwardly, and thank you for what you're doing. Amber didn't smile. I'm not doing it for you. She walked away. That evening, Donald sat at his desk, staring at the invitation in his hand. Lutech Annual Investor Dinner. Friday. Dress code, formal. He tapped the edge of the card. Maybe it was time the public saw the girls. Again. Maybe, just maybe they were ready. Or maybe he just wanted them to stand beside him and prove he hadn't lost everything that mattered. He buzzed his assistant. Add Karen and Allison to the dinner list. A pause. And find someone who can help them pick dresses. The dresses arrived 2 days before the investor dinner. Soft satin, the color of rose petals picked with care by a stylist who somehow got both girls to smile without bribery or tears. But it wasn't the dresses that changed them. It was the jars. Amber introduced them on a Monday morning. 4 mason jars, each labeled in bold crayon, mad, sad, glad, brave. A pile of fuzzy pom-poms sat in the center of the table. We name the feeling, and we drop it in the jar, Amber explained, lifting a red pom-pom and placing it in mad. Even big feelings need somewhere to live. Karen reached for a blue one. Sad. Amber nodded gently. You can be sad and brave at the same time, Allison whispered. What if I don't know what it is? Then we start with a guess. By Friday, the jars weren't full, but they weren't empty anymore either. That same week, Amber handed each girl a tiny locket on a chain. Inside, a foldable square of paper and room for more. It's for your letters, she said. So Mommy can be close, even when it's hard. Every night, the twins added something, sometimes a sentence, sometimes just a crayon heart, and whispered goodnight. Mommy, before snapping them shut. Donald noticed it first during dinner. He'd started sitting with them, just 3 nights a week at first. No phone, no meetings. Just spaghetti and little feet kicking under the table. One evening, Allison reached across the bread basket and said, Dad, you're chewing mad. Want to borrow a red? He blinked. A red what? Karen pointed to an invisible pom-pom and smiled. For the jar, he laughed. Actually laughed. Later that night, when the girls were in bed, Donald stood beside Amber on the rooftop terrace. Below them, Lutech shimmered under LED lights. They're different, he said quietly. Amber didn't take credit. They're safe, he glanced sideways. Because of you. They just needed permission to feel things without being punished. For a moment, he looked like he might say more, but instead, he offered her the last bite of chocolate from his plate. She took it without a word. The silence between them felt warm. That weekend, Amber brought Marcus to the school STEM fair. His robot, a wobbly thing made of tin cans and LED scraps, won second place in most creative design. The twins ran up and hugged him like he was their brother. We brought something, Allison said shyly. Karen held out a paper-wrapped object. Inside was the rainbow crayon, the one Amber had made that first day. It's for your robot's heart, she said. Marcus grinned. Then it'll be powered by color. Amber blinked fast. They were becoming a family, even if no one said it aloud. But the world was never quiet for long. The next morning, a tabloid headline made its way onto every news feed. Lutech accused of labor exploitation. CEO in hot water over janitorial conditions. Donald's name was bolded. So was Amber's. A grainy photo of her mopping in the executive suite sat under a caption she never authorized. Donald's mood changed instantly. Walls back up, shoulders rigid. He snapped at assistants. Cut meetings short. Avoided eye contact. The twins felt it. They clung tighter to Amber. When Donald entered a room, they watched his hands instead of his face. One afternoon, a media truck parked outside the mansion gates. The board wanted answers. The PR team wanted a scapegoat. Amber attended the next all-staff meeting at Donald's request, thinking she'd be helping. Instead, she stood beside cafeteria workers while their wages were questioned. When she spoke up, her voice calm but firm, Donald's jaw clenched. They've been working double shifts without full pay. That's not just a labor issue, it's an integrity issue. The room fell silent. Donald's eyes didn't leave hers. You're here to clean. Ms. Robinson. The sentence hit the floor like a dropped dish. Amber didn't speak. She just stepped back. Eyes steady, lips pressed tight. The twins weren't in the room, but upstairs. They felt the shift, and for the first time in weeks, they stopped writing their letters. It happened in front of the entire executive staff. Amber stood her ground beside the cafeteria workers, her voice calm but unwavering. They deserve to be paid for every hour they work, especially the ones no one sees. Donald didn't look at her. He looked past her, at the board, the lawyers, the publicist fidgeting by the door. You're out of line, he said. I'm standing exactly where I should be. He said it before he could stop himself. You're here to clean. Ms. Robinson, not run my company. The silence that followed was suffocating. Amber didn't flinch. She just gave a small nod, like she'd been waiting for this moment since the day she stepped into the building. I understand. The next day, she packed her cart quietly. The cafeteria staff lined the hall as she passed, heads bowed. One of the dishwashers pressed a homemade empanada into her hand. Amber smiled, touched her heart, and kept walking. At the elevator, Marcus waited with a backpack slung over one shoulder. He didn't ask questions, just reached for her mop bucket and said, "We build with what we have." Amber kissed the top of his head. "Yes, baby, we do." Across the city, Donald's week unraveled. A leaked video of the firing hit social media. The footage, Amber standing firm while Donald snapped, went viral. A headline followed. Janitor fired for defending underpaid staff at Billionaire's firm. Public sympathy tilted hard in Amber's favor. The comments burned. She did more for those girls than he ever did. He should be taking notes, not giving orders. Inside the mansion, the girls unraveled faster. They screamed the first night, sobbed in sync like they were wired together. Karen tore her letter to Mommy into pieces. Allison tried to tape hers back together with glitter stickers, but it wouldn't hold. They refused to eat, refused to dress, refused to speak. 3 days after Amber was fired, they disappeared during a nap break. A full staff search finally found them curled up inside the supply closet on the second floor, Amber's old break corner. On Donald's desk that evening sat a note, scrawled in crayon and taped with leftover stars. "Bring her back or we won't talk." He stared at it for a long time, longer than he'd stared at any quarterly report or market trend in the past year. The next evening, Donald stood outside a modest apartment complex in the rain. He hadn't brought an umbrella. It felt wrong somehow. Marcus opened the door. He was wearing goggles and a sweater 2 sizes too big, and he held a robot made from bottle caps and coat hangers. "This is Alphabot," he said proudly. "He can blink, kind of." Donald almost smiled. "That's impressive." Marcus stepped aside. "She's studying. Come in, if you're here to say something real." Amber was seated at the small dining table, surrounded by open binders, highlighters, and a textbook titled Trauma-Informed Play Therapy. Her face didn't show surprise. "I came to apologize," Donald said. "You fired me. I was under pressure." The board, Amber closed the binder. "No," Donald hesitated. "No? No excuses. You don't get to come here because the internet got loud. You don't get to fix this because you're afraid of what it looks like. You fix it because it's wrong." She stood, tired but solid. "I'm not leverage. I'm not damage control. I'm someone who tried to help your daughters heal." He looked down. From his coat pocket, he pulled out a folded piece of crayon-scrawled paper, one of the letters the twins had torn. He'd found it on his doorstep that morning, wrapped in a rubber band. "I know," he said softly. Amber didn't answer. He left quietly, water dripping from his sleeves. The letter clutched like a lifeline. 2 days later, the Lou Foundation Gala invitations went out. Donald had rewritten his speech. There would be no product launches, No new mergers, just one promise, a pledge to rebuild everything, starting with the people. At the twins' school that morning, Karen leaned in close to her teacher's ear. "We want to do something at the gala." The teacher blinked. "What kind of something?" Karen smiled. "A surprise?" The ballroom glittered with wealth. Crystal chandeliers bathed the room in golden light, bouncing off champagne flutes and polished shoes. Reporters circled the perimeter like sharks in heels, their lenses trained on the Grand Lou Foundation banner hanging above the stage. Donald stood at the podium, a crisp tuxedo hiding the tightness in his chest. The speech in front of him was perfect, crafted by PR, polished by lawyers. He cleared his throat. "Tonight," he began, voice smooth, practiced, "we celebrate innovation, excellence, and our enduring commitment to the community." A soft rustle from stage left. He glanced sideways. Two small figures were climbing the steps, Karen and Allison, in matching red dresses, hand in hand. The room went still. No one moved. No one breathed. Donald took a half step toward them, unsure, but the girls didn't look at him. They looked at the crowd. Karen reached the microphone first. Her voice was barely a whisper. "We want Miss Amber back." Allison nodded, her locket trembling slightly in her hand. "She helped us feel safe," gasps echoed. Phones lifted. Camera flashes sparked. Donald froze. Karen opened her locket, unfolded a crayon-smudged note, and began reading. "Dear Mommy in Heaven, Miss Amber helped us be brave today. We shared the purple pom-poms. She said that meant we were glad and scared at the same time." Allison followed, her voice growing steadier. "She made it okay to miss you. She said love doesn't stop just because someone's not here." The audience didn't applaud. Not yet. They listened, really listened. A low murmur rippled through the room. Tears blinked back behind designer glasses. Someone at the staff table sniffled audibly. Donald's hands dropped from the podium. The teleprompter blinked silently, waiting. He looked out at the sea of faces, then down at his daughters. He didn't pick up the speech. "I've failed," he said, the words catching on something raw. "I failed my girls, and I failed the people who work for me." More silence. "A deeper kind. I made decisions from fear. I called empathy a weakness. I turned away from what mattered because it wasn't neat. Because it didn't look like success." He turned toward the crowd. "But real strength doesn't come from control. It comes from care." He took a breath, steadier now. "Effective immediately, all underpaid staff will receive full back pay. Lutech will undergo an independent audit of its employment practices. And if she'll accept," his voice caught, "Miss Amber Robinson is invited to return. Not as a janitor, but to lead a new initiative, our first child and family wellness program." The crowd gasped again. Applause broke out, quiet at first, then rising like a storm. The cameras turned. At the back of the ballroom, framed in the open double doors, stood Amber. She hadn't dressed up. She wore her navy work shirt, her hair pulled back, her badge still clipped to her pocket. Donald held his breath. For a long moment, she didn't move. Then the twins broke free from the stage. They ran. Amber dropped to her knees just as they reached her, and the three of them folded into each other. Lockets pressed between them, arms tight around shoulders. Flashbulbs exploded like fireworks. Donald stepped down from the stage slowly, his eyes never leaving them. By the time he reached her, Amber had stood. The girls clung to her legs. Mascara from someone else's hug smudged across Karen's cheek. Donald cleared his throat. "Amber!" She raised a hand gently. "Not here." "Not now," he nodded, humbled. "Then later. I'd like to invite you and Marcus to dinner." "Not as staff." Amber studied him for a beat. "We'll think about it." He smiled, small but real. As the girls led Amber back inside, a board member appeared at Donald's elbow, voice low. "She's powerful. And she makes people listen. You bring her into leadership, they'll test you. Hard." Donald didn't flinch. "Good," he said. It's time someone did. The mansion felt different now. No staff bustled through the halls. No white-gloved servers stood behind silver trays. In the vast kitchen, where silence used to echo like wealth, there was only the clatter of plates, the sizzle of garlic in a pan, and the unmistakable sound of children laughing. Amber stirred the spaghetti sauce with one hand, holding a strainer steady with the other. Marcus sat at the island counter, a soldering iron in one hand and a coil of copper wire in the other. Karen and Allison flanked him like tiny apprentices, faces smudged with marinara and focus. "Okay now," Marcus said, adjusting his goggles. "Watch the connection here. Too hot and it fries." He pressed the tip to the wire and sealed a glowing red LED heart into place. It flickered on, pulsing softly in the belly of his tin can robot. The twins gasped in unison. Karen whispered, "That's the rainbow crayon heart." Marcus grinned. "Yeah, it's the real version. Want to name it?" "Bravebot," Allison said immediately. Donald, leaning in the doorway with rolled sleeves and a dish towel slung over his shoulder, chuckled. Very on brand. Later, when the plates were scraped clean and the robot stood proudly on the table with blinking lights, Amber pulled out a folded piece of paper. "Okay. Family meeting," she announced. The twins perked up. Donald raised a brow. "Are we being audited?" "Worse," Amber said with a smile. "We're making rules." Across the top of the page, in bubble letters, read, "Family Charter." Below were 4 big words: respect, repair, rest, play. "We all sign," Amber said, placing the pen in Karen's hand first. "Because we all matter." One by one they signed. Donald's name came last. He looked at the girls, then at Marcus, then at Amber, and signed like it meant something. Months passed in moments. Amber's staff wellness program launched first. Break times were extended. A listening circle was built into the weekly schedule. For the first time, janitors and kitchen workers had access to therapy stipends and parenting classes. The twins flourished. So did the mansion. The girls now co-hosted snack time in the child care wing, passing out apple slices and crayons like tiny diplomats. Amber, now co-running the revamped care center, studied at night. Her license application this time was her own choice. Her name, her story. Donald started reading bedtime stories. Not always smoothly, his voices were terrible, but the girls didn't care. He tucked in their letters to Mommy and practiced brave breaths when one of them woke from a dream. At school, Karen, Allison, and Marcus entered the science fair as a team. Their project, Broken Things We Made New. They displayed a rainbow crayon melted into a sculpture, a robot with a glowing heart, and a picture frame pieced together from broken glass and old stickers. They won first place. That night, on the mansion terrace, under string lights and the hum of summer insects, Donald stood beside Amber, 2 mugs of tea between them. He looked at her, not the janitor, not the mother, not the fixer, but her. "I thought I was hiring help," he said quietly. "Turns out, I was the one who needed saving." Amber's smile was soft and full of sadness and joy all at once. "Love isn't a contract, Donald. It's a choice you make every day." He reached for her hand. She let him. Their first kiss was quiet, earned. It didn't promise everything, but it promised trying. A year later, the garden bloomed with late spring color. Laughter rang from behind the hedges as the children directed Donald to a spot near the fountain. "Close your eyes," Allison shouted. "No peeking!" Karen warned. Marcus added, "This is serious engineering." Donald obliged. When he opened them, the 3 children stood holding a sign made from painted cardboard and glitter glue. "Will you join our family? Forever?" Below it was a locket. Inside, the original rainbow crayon, now worn smooth at the edges. Donald looked up. Amber stood behind them, hand pressed to her mouth, tears brimming but not falling. He pulled a small velvet box from his jacket. Inside wasn't a diamond, just a simple gold band with 3 tiny stones, 1 for each child. "I don't want perfect," he said. "I want real. I want this." Amber nodded, speechless. "Yes," she whispered. Yes, that night, after the garden lights dimmed and the children had eaten too many cupcakes, the house exhaled. Amber hummed softly in the kitchen, wiping counters as Donald dried plates beside her. The twins were curled on the couch, fast asleep in her lap, their heads nestled like puzzle pieces. Marcus pulled a blanket over them and tucked it gently beneath their chins. Donald watched them all for a moment, then reached for another dish. "They didn't erase the cracks," Amber murmured. "They just colored them in." Donald nodded. "And somehow," she added, eyes soft, "the picture was stronger.